So I guess to start, can you just give the people who don't know who you are a short background? I'm sure you do this a lot, Judy, of what you do in Canada, your role with the athletes that you work with.
Okay, well, I haven't done it in a while when I think about it. So, my name's Judy Goss. I'm a mental performance consultant, and I've worked with many athletes over the years, but I primarily focus on national Olympic team athletes. That I work with a variety of national sport organizations like beach volleyball, swimming, wrestling, all different kinds of sports, which is kind of really good because it gives you a good breadth of understanding of how mental training or mental skills impact a variety of different sports as well as golf.
Right. So what are there any similarities you see at the highest performers amongst these sports, or are the sports so different that there is no commonality between these high performers?
No, I'd say there's very a variety of common characteristics within high performers. Sport does not matter at all.
Right. So what kind of commonalities do you think these high performers share when it comes to performing at their respective sports?
Uh, I'd certainly say that they have, a strong work ethic that really, obviously helps them maximize their physical talents or physical skills and their mental skills, right? They certainly are willing to take feedback. They're looking for feedback. They want information of how they can perform better, whether it be critical or positive feedback. They're also very self aware. They understand how they respond and react in different situations. And then they work towards putting skills and strategies in place to help them manage themselves.
I see. So with that self-aware portion that you're saying, do you think a lot of, let's say, your amateur athlete or amateur golfer at the club level, do you think they lack that self-awareness when compared to the highest performers?
It may not be that they lack that self awareness, but when your skills, physical skills, are not kind of perfected, and I just mean, consistent, okay, it really starts to be difficult to know where you should focus your attention or what really is impacting that skill. We've all, hit a ball at one point in time physically well, but maybe been distracted mentally, and that probably created a little bit of an error, more so than the way we hit the ball. So I think that at a more elite level, their skills are somewhat more consistent. So they have a greater ability to know, was it really, a mental error, as we might say, or a physical error?
I see. So with that in mind, what are the most common hindrances that you see from these amateur golfers or amateur athletes that may hold them back, regardless of what skill level they're at?
Well, I'd say that, we tend to overthink things, right? And we get thinking a little bit ahead of ourselves. What's going to happen? Where's the ball going to go? That kind of thing. Or we even get in the past, what I just did, how it just impacted where my lie is right now, as opposed to being in the moment. What are you doing right now? What do I need to pay attention to right now? Right. So that's probably one of the things that's the hardest. And then also not uh, getting too mechanical in terms of what I am focused on, like my shoulder, my hip. There are a variety of physical things we could be focusing on when we're trying to hit a golf ball. And sometimes, really going, as we'd say, maybe too internal doesn't really help us.
I see. So is it fair to say that sorry, whoops, so there was a outstanding alarm on my clock. Is it fair to say that with these people, with the club level golfers, not staying in the moment, you find the highest performers do a much better job of staying in the moment, just not thinking about what happened in the past, not thinking too much about what's going to happen in the future. They just really do their best to do what's there at that time.
Yeah, and one of the ways that they do that is they're pretty consistent with their pre-shot routine. I mean, that's one of the things that a pre-shot routine is supposed to do, is to bring you to what you're doing right now. So they're also very good at that routine that they go through. Whereas we, and I put myself in that not the greatest golfer
Mhm.
kind of scenario, we may be doing random things or not completely, as we'd say, engrossed or engaged in that pre-shot routine.
I see. So when you say engrossed in it, is it fair to say like some people may just go through the motion, but they're not really truly doing that with intent to bring themselves to that present state to try to execute whatever they're trying to do?
Yeah, they're not really attending to it.
I
Okay.
see.
And it's not really the routine that you go through. It doesn't matter, the X, Y, and Z of the routine. It's that you're actually engaged in what you're doing and paying attention. For example, sometimes one of the things we want to make sure in a pre-shot routine is that, your body's feeling relaxed or loose, whatever you need to do. We can take a deep breath, as lots of people do, and it doesn't do anything. I mean, we
Right.
breathe all day long, we're not relaxed or anything. But if that breath is intended to make sure your shoulders relax, your arms are loose, well, then that's what we need to ensure that's happening. So at times, you might have to take two deep breaths, three deep breaths.
I see. So how does someone start building this awareness and this intent into their pre-shot routine and try to get them to be more present?
Well, one thing they could certainly do is, when you do, hit the ball well, as we might say, is to kind of reflect back on the things that you did and what were you doing, how you're feeling, how you were thinking, as we might say, before that shot. So, what did you do prior to that shot that hopefully helped you be in that state? So, you can start to kind of build that routine. I know for me, when I step up and I'm hitting a drive, it's a little bit of a different routine than if I'm hitting a wedge or chipping or something around the green. That's fine. I need different cues. I need to focus on different things. So my routine is slightly different, right? So I think you can work through those. I mean, we have lots of time maybe at the simulator or in the on the practice tee where you can really work through those routines. Obviously, on the practice tee, we don't really work on the routines. We just hit ball after ball after ball without much thought to it. So, really taking that time during the practice time will help you build that routine that's going to help you on the course.
I see. So you're saying players should be even on the range going through if assuming that they're happy with their skills to try to create that routine for themselves on the practice range to give themselves a better chance at actually having it happen on the course.
Yeah, and I would mix it up. So it doesn't mean that if I'm hitting a 7 iron, it doesn't mean every single time I hit a 7 iron, I want to go through the routine, but at least every 3 or 4 shots, step away, look where you're hitting, go through that process again. It's okay to hit one or two if you're trying to feel something or correct something, but don't hit, 35 balls with no routine.
I see. I see. So with these routines, how long is there a common ground or an optimal spot in terms of how long these pre-shot routines should be?
Um, I'd say yes and no. There's an optimal spot for each person,
Hmm.
and that every person is a little bit different.
I see.
Okay. Some people are a little quicker than others, some people are a little slower than others. What I'd say is, on the practice tee, you should be able to get a handle on how much time it does take you. Will probably be a little bit faster on the practice tee and a little bit slower on the course, but it should be similar, as we'd say, right? We probably don't carry as much tension with us on the practice tee as we might on the course. And we also probably don't need to attend to as many factors on the practice tee
I
as
see.
we would need to attend to factors on the course,
Right.
right? And that does, influence your pre-shot routine a little bit in terms of choosing your club at any one particular
I see.
spot, right?
Right. So when people are first building this for the first time for themselves, trying to build that pre-shot routine, what are some hints or cues for them to know, oh, like they're on the right track? Like, okay, like maybe I'm doing the right things to build that routine.
So I would give them three things to consider. One, we want to make sure your body's in that right state, feeling generally loose,
Hmm.
relaxed, no tension, loose grip, whatever is necessary for you.
Hmm.
So have some type of, whether it's body awareness, some kind of scan, whatever you may do, just to make sure your body's in that right state. Then we also need to think about our thoughts, the second area. What am I thinking about? What am I focused on? Where is my shot going to go? Those kinds of things that help me to commit to the shot and, kind of go for it, as we might say.
Hmm.
And then the third area is your kind of emotions. Am I scared to take this shot? Am I confident with what I'm doing? Am I feeling positive, which, can often be a little bit of positive self-talk or
Hmm.
encouragement for yourself. So those three areas can start you to just check in, right, with what's going on.
Hmm. On that emotions part, is it are people more likely to do well if they're in a more positive state of mind, or does it vary from person to person?
Generally, the research shows that, the more positive or at least hopeful you are, um, it's better than being negative. I'm not going to say we all say negative things to ourselves, and at times it may not impact you. But generally, the more, positive, or I even say process oriented you are on what is it that I need to do or what am I focusing on, is generally more beneficial than saying, oh, this is going to suck, right?
I see. I see. When you say process oriented, you are. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Well, instead of thinking I gotta, I gotta par this hole,
Uh huh.
right? Think about what is it that's more than likely going to contribute to you scoring well.
Mm,
So, swinging through the shot, coming up and underneath the shot, keeping my head down. What are the key things that more than likely will contribute to potentially achieving a par?
I see. I see. Cool. So, going back to that emotions part, generally, if the more positive and hopeful you are, generally things will go well. Are there any times where being a little bit negative might actually be beneficial for whatever you're trying to do or trying to learn, or is that generally not going to help at all?
Well, the thing that happens when we get a little bit negative, there is, some little bit of frustration where we
Hmm.
might swear or curse or whatever. But, you know, if some of the things that we say to ourselves, right? You may have thoughts or you may verbalize it to yourself.
Hmm.
If you were to say that to a friend, do you think that would help the friend play better?
Gotcha.
Generally, no,
Right.
right? The other thing that happens with, negativity is that we start to tell ourselves what not to do. So if I say to you, don't think of a pink elephant, what's the first thing that comes
Right.
to your mind? The pink elephant. Don't hit the ball in the water. What am I kind of thinking about? I'm not really thinking about my grip, which is, or my head, which is probably going to help me from hitting it in the water. I'm thinking about the water. So we want to be, you know, we want to tell ourselves what to do as opposed to what not to do. Okay. And the other thing that tends to happen with some negativity is that there tends to be a little bit of, if we're angry or frustrated, there tends to be a little physiological tension that comes with that, which generally does not help a good swing, right?
I see. Right, right. So, if so, on that note, I think it's very common, like we always see it, or maybe we've done it ourselves. After a round, people always usually reflect on the bad stuff first that happened. They always tell their friends, "Oh, I three putted 5 times this round," or "Oh, like whatever." Right? Is that healthy or not healthy to do?
Well, it's probably good to debrief what you actually did, but that's not just looking at the bad. It's also looking at the good, right? We'll probably learn more from the good shots we hit than we'll learn from the bad shots we hit, right? And golf is it's a humbling sport, right? Where I've, especially this summer, I've gotten some bad bounces, right? Like hit some great shots, and it's like, wow, that was a really bad bounce. I'm not going to give myself, you know, I'm not going to criticize myself because I hit the ball really well. It was right on the top of the bunker like I wanted to, and instead of bouncing forward, it bounced back, right?
Right.
And so we want to evaluate all the things, right? That really make a difference. Just to give you an easy example. Oh, well, maybe I did three putt 5 times, but part of that was not just my putting, it was my ball striking. And I was like, I don't know, 60 feet away from the cup to begin with. It doesn't mean that you putted all that poorly.
Hmm.
You also hit the ball poorly. So, but what do we start to now? I'm a bad putter. And that's not really a true, accurate statement.
Right. Right. So is it so I guess a better way to think about this is if you are going to say some bad stuff, also say some good stuff when you reflect is not have too much emotional attachment to it, be stoic about it. Is that a better way to do it rather than uh, attach a negative connotation to your debriefing?
Well, and I think that if you can, the whole thing about debriefing is being able to determine what you're going to do differently.
Mm,
So if I three putted 5 times, okay, so what? So what are you going to do differently that's going to impact your putting? So as the example, it might be, your short game right around the green that may impact that free putting, or it might be, yeah, doing some drills or doing something a little bit more on the putting green. So we really want to evaluate so that we know what we're going to change and do differently. People who just complain about their game and then just do the same thing, not much is going to happen.
right. Right. So with that in mind, with the negativity bringing you more tension physiologically, would would stress and negative emotions from outside the golf course affect you on the golf course even if you don't mean for it to happen?
Sure, sure. Come on. We've all got a lot of stress and tension with, COVID going on.
Right.
It's hard to leave everything at home, as we'd say. So I hope that people are playing golf because they enjoy it
Hmm.
and it is a little bit of an escape or a release for them. So we really do want to look up to the sky and enjoy the beautiful, scenery that we're being able to enjoy. But for sure, any stress that you're carrying or worries that you're carrying can impact your game negatively.
Is there anything that or any tips or exercises people can do to try to separate, like everyday life stress from the golf course?
Well, and it's a little bit of that preparation piece. Same thing, like maybe as you get your clubs out of the back of your car, you put your golf shoes on, you're kind of putting your thoughts and worries away. Hopefully, you have enough time to enjoy this. I was playing the other day, and I had to get back for a phone call, kind of thing, and our course. If you're at 14, that's your easiest way if you're not going to be able to play all 18. And they were like, oh, I think you might be able to make it, Judy. And I'm like, I might be able to, but why am I putting stress on that? I'm not going to enjoy the last few holes because I'm going to be stressed if I'm going to make it. I've played lots of golf this summer. 14 holes was fine. Let's just go back, be relaxed, and then I'm prepared for my phone call, and I'm also good at that. So we got to make those kind of wise decisions some of the
I
times,
see.
right?
And not trying to compromise both situations at hand.
Yeah. Play the last few holes poorly, probably be late and rush for my call that I had.
I see. Yeah, that would be not the funnest situation to put yourself on. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about how you help your daughter Kennedy prepare for her. So she's an Olympic swimmer in the 2016 Olympics. For people who don't know, your husband also just so happens to also be an Olympic swimmer as well. How do you? And then your son is also he played college golf in the States as well. Like, how do you help them prep? Is it different than how you help your non-child athletes prep? Like, is it a little different or is it pretty much the same?
Well, I think my kids would argue that I don't help them prep, that they know. I think I certainly hope that I brought them up in, an environment that, you know, getting out there, challenging yourself, competing was a good thing. And making mistakes and failing is part of it as well. Just learning and trying your best is something that we want to do. Certainly help my kids prepare in terms of, you know, being organized for a competition or a tournament, being fully prepared, all those kinds of things helps them obviously mentally. And they certainly would know and understand what the mental skills are to be able to prepare effectively for competition just by, I don't know, hearing me talk all the time, I guess.
That's funny. So like in terms of um helping them grow from the younger ages now to now as young adults, um how do you recommend people build that good environment for kids to grow, whether it's in sports, whether it's in something else, to be able to be a high performer?
Well, one of the things that I certainly think is important, is, both my kids certainly had lots of sport experience. I know that it's tough. People want you to specialize early on. I was adamant that my kids would have a good sport experience, do many sports. And that certainly tired me out as a parent. I recognize how difficult that is. But when they get to play individual sports, team sports, judge sports, ball sports, whatever it may be, it gives them more understanding of competition, teammates, communication, coaching, all those kinds of qualities that they need to learn about. How I can focus, how I'm motivated, helping them to also build their self awareness, right? So I think that as parents, the one thing, at least in Canada, golf is really one season, correct?
For
I
sure.
mean, you can still play indoor golf, but it really is one season. So it does lend itself for you to be able to allow your children to play other sports, which is really good. And
Right.
I think that that's the most important thing. The other thing is letting them choose a sport that they want to participate in. Obviously, my family, swimming was one thing they were both going to learn how to do because we also had a cottage and I didn't want them to drown.
Right.
So swimming was a skill that they were going to learn. Similar to skating, they both learned how to skate because, you're in Canada. That's one thing, you get to do with your friends and whatnot. So I, tried to do that variety for them. And then it allows them to make the choice for themselves, right? My son did play college golf, but he played a lot. He played hockey and badminton much more seriously when he was younger because golf was just kind of something he did during the summer, right? So he was very active in those other sports until he decided that, golf was one sport that maybe he could go to university and do. And then he focused on that. But that was his choice, right? And I think that's really something that we got to allow the kids to do is to choose what they want to do. They're much more
Right.
motivated that way.
Right. How about your daughter? When did she decide to start swimming?
Oh well, she was one of those that always loved the water. So she started swimming, when she was probably 8 or 9 years old. But she also did everything. I mean, I know when she was 15 years old, she was still, going to volleyball practice and whatnot. And I'd be getting, in trouble from the swim coach that she was missing swimming because she was playing volleyball. And I said, 15 minutes of swimming 2 times a week, not that important. I think she's getting a greater benefit from being in a team sport, doing something different, a little bit of cross training. It's not going to harm her.
Right.
Obviously, it didn't.
Right. Yeah. Totally. Totally. So generally speaking, is there a age where you start deciding when to specialize from your point of view?
Yeah, I would say for sure after, I always say between the ages of 8 to 12, they should be doing multiple sports. So you can't specialize before the age of 12 for sure. As you get to be 13, 14, the other thing when we hit puberty, you know, people grow and change.
Hmm.
And, that body type that they might have had for sport before has really kind of changed, right? So I wouldn't say before 14 that you really, really specialized.
I see. I see. So going back to you were saying helping your kids be more self-aware as they grow and play these different sports. Um, what what can you do to build that? Like, what do you do to prompt them to be self-aware? Is it just saying, "Oh, Kennedy, think about this next time when you compete or play"?
Well, I think it's really more about asking really good questions, and it's less about the answer to the questions. You know, you wow, you looked really, um, I don't know, prepared for that last race. You were there, behind the blocks early. You looked really warmed up. You looked like you were really focused and ready to go. Maybe that helped. I don't know. What do you think? Right? So just prompting questions. You looked like you were a little rushed when you were running to the tee, and you're doing up your shoes and tucking in your shirt. And, that first shot that you took wasn't maybe the best. Do you think that you felt a little rushed? Right? So you can ask those little questions around, and, you really want them to discover it for themselves as opposed to you telling them, right? Which is a hard thing for parents. I get a lot of kids come in, well, my mom or my dad said that I wasn't confident. And I'm like, really? Well, you know, maybe you were, right? What do you think, kind of thing. So we really want them to think for themselves. So sometimes just asking questions around how they were thinking, what they were feeling, what they were experienced. Did you notice that bothered you, helped you, hurt you, whatever it may be?
Right. So are these questions something that anyone can just ask themselves, or should they think about it slightly differently when prompting themselves to grow their self-awareness?
Well, I think that it's depending if they have a coach, of course, that coaches would generally obviously review, debrief, a competition, a tournament, whatever they may be in. And that review process starts to build that natural kind of, I'll look back and think about these things, and we want to make sure you're not just thinking about the technical pieces. Like sometimes the coach will review just technical aspects, like you chose the wrong club, you didn't consider for the wind. Okay, those are important aspects, but what was I thinking? How was I feeling? Are also important concepts.
I see. So for most of these club level golfers, you probably will not be working with a sports psych or a coach. Maybe they just play every week or two with their friends. What are like maybe like three things that they can ask themselves during a round or after a round to help them start growing this self-awareness for themselves?
Well, after, I always say it's kind of not a bad thing in the middle. And come on,
Mhm.
during golf we have a lot of downtime, right?
Mhm.
So if you notice that that was a really good drive, like as you're walking down the fairway to, hit the next ball, hmm, was I thinking, was I doing, what did I notice about that particular drive that maybe might have helped? It's a little bit of that kind of review process. Okay, I really was able to I really turned my shoulders well on that time. Okay, make a little mental note. And then when we go up and we go through that, pre-shot routine, am I going to remember a little bit of that turning process when I do my practice swing, and then step up and let's see if that was done again.
I see. So really early on, and maybe a lot of trial and erroring. You hit something, you're like, oh, maybe I did this. You try it again on the next one. Oh, it happened again. You tried again. Didn't happen this time, but you take a lot of sample points to try to come up with what might have worked well for you on those good moments.
Yeah, right. And we can't explain all results,
Totally.
right? And all one thing that we want to build, obviously, and golf is a great example of this, is a little bit of consistency, right? People, especially, golfers tend to change things a lot.
Compared to other sports.
I always say that one of my worst clients was a teaching pro, because whenever anything went wrong, he'd always start to fiddle with his grip or his swing. And it's like, we're never going to really figure out what's wrong if you keep changing everything every time,
Totally.
right? And it's the same thing with even the pre-shot routine or any of the mental skills. They're not going to work every single time. We're not perfect at that, just like we're not perfect at a particular golf swing, but we want to build that consistency. So we have to try things for, I won't even give you an amount of time, but a good amount of time, right? We've got to see it's a learning process. As you learn a mental skill, we also, it's a similar to learning a physical skill. You weren't perfect at it at the beginning, but you kept trying. So we got to be consistent with our practice and our, effort.
Right. I think that's really cool. You say that where it's, let's say you don't execute, doesn't mean you didn't do a good job with your mental processing, with what you did in your pre-shot routine. Is that fair to say?
Correct. Right.
Right.
Uh, it's not a game of perfect. Isn't that one of the books that Bob
Totally. Yeah,
Rotella
yeah,
wrote?
totally. So
Right.
I think really, like, through this conversation and through what I see playing with friends at the club, or hearing what a lot of my clients say, maybe there is a false expectation of, I did my routine. That should have given me good results, but there is really no should in golf, really.
No, right? And just because, we're very much creatures of habit. So we will do the same thing. And just doing it doesn't make it actually impact you, right? Just like I said, just because I take a deep breath, that may not ensure. And you know what I love to see, and we see this sometimes in the pros, right? Where they'll be stepping up to the ball, they'll be about to hit, and then they step out of the box, as we'd say. I love to see that because it means to me, even them were distracted or something was not feeling right, and they had the wherewithal to step back and say, whoa, wait a minute, let me get back to my process and do it again. Like, we've all been there, and I look at my ball and I'm like, oh, it's teed up too high. Doesn't matter, I'll hit it anyways. I can't hit the
So
ball.
totally. Yeah.
Step away, Judy. Like, you're
Right.
not that good.
Right.
Right? So at times you might, take that deep breath and notice, I feel pretty good. Okay. Then continue, right? But just taking the deep breath does not mean you're going to feel good,
Right. Right. And
right?
not, and just because you feel good doesn't mean you're gonna hit a good shot.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
see. I
There's
see.
a number of other aspects that have to kind of unfold too, right?
I see. I think that's a really important thing for people to really accept.
Well, and I think the biggest thing for novice golfers is we really just want to you know decrease that kind of bandwidth. So everybody's going to make a bad shot, but it's trying to hit the next ball as well as possible. So
Hmm.
instead of having a triple bogey, let's reduce it to a double, right? So like just get those really bad holes, let's
Hmm.
reduce that. That's probably building a little consistency. The thing that you see with the expert golfers, they'll hit a bad shot, but the next shot really gets them out of trouble, right?
Right.
They're really good at getting the up and downs, as we'd
Right.
say, right?
Right.
That's we got to pick where we're going to work hard at doing things. And to me, it would be trying to reduce the bad shot, right?
Right. Totally. So
Which we
talking
all
about
have.
so talk about the bandwidth. Let's. I want to ask about like the emotional bandwidth when you're playing around a golf, right? I think it's very common we see a big F bomb get dropped, and then like 3 holes later they make a big putt. They're like super happy, and then the next shot literally like goes right back down. So like how I'm assuming from what we've said so far, that's probably not good and encouraging for performance or for consistent performance. Um, is that fair for me to assume?
Yeah, because consistent performance means feeling a similar kind of emotion, and you're not going to maintain that really high I'm doing great emotion the whole time. Hopefully we're not going to maintain that angry mad emotion, right? So it's true, being a little bit more consistent with the way that we're feeling and thinking.
Right. Does it take up more of your energy physically or mentally to be in that high or low spot? Does it eat up more of your energy if you're in those spots, or?
um and with that, it's that would obviously be a little bit more of an individual question for
I
some
see.
people, for sure. And for other people, no, they may be just naturally high energy. So they're kind of used to that.
I
So,
see.
yeah.
So
And so
regardless
just,
of if it's a high energy individual, regardless whether it's high or low on the negative end, it's that's just them. They're just so that's just their personality.
personality. Yeah.
I see. I see. But you would say generally being in a more like mellow middle ground would be more conducive for
Yeah,
having
well,
better
when we
results.
look at that kind of level of activation, if we go from low to high, when you think about golf, it would just tend to be a little bit lower than, running 100 meters fast, right?
Right. Right.
So just in general, just the way the skill is, it's a little bit of a fine motor control skill. We don't want to be too anxious, hyped up, like, hand shaking, like wouldn't bother you if you were running, but it may bother you if you're putting. So golf on average would tend to be slightly lower than other sports.
I see. So in between shots where there is a long duration of time in between executions of the movement, um, what are some things that you can do to try to get back to this mellow ground? Because I'm imagining most golfers aren't going to stay mellow for 4.5 hours, right? I think there's so much interaction. You play with your buddies. Distractions happen, like you say, that might spike you one way or the other. How do you stay in that middle ground when it is time for you to execute?
Well, I think that one rule of thumb that you could, use, or I try to say to people is, if you've hit a drive 200 yards, for that first 100 yards of you walking, talk, chat, enjoy what you're doing. But then as you start to get closer to the ball, start to think, okay, this is, I still have another 200 yards to go. What club am I going to use? If I already know I'm on the left hand side of the fairway, what does that mean? So you can start determining what you're going to do so that when you get there, you're not rushed, because that's sometimes what elevates kind of that little bit of nervousness or anxiety is I'm feeling rushed. I'm not really sure what I'm doing, right? And then you have enough time to kind of go through your pre-shot routine so you're feeling kind of, at least calm. If you needed to, take a little bit longer to kind of take a couple deep breaths, or really, commit to the club that you're gonna hit, right?
Mhm. I see. I see. If you can leave, my students here with some lasting thoughts or like parting words for them to try to bring some of what we've talked about to the golf course, just to help them perform better, hopefully, whether it's with their friends or in a club champ or whatever it may be. Like what would you say is some good parting words for them?
Well, I'd certainly say, we play it because we want to have fun. And
Totally.
remember that. Okay? Because if we're enjoying what we're doing, we're enjoying being out, you're going to be in a better state than if you're not, right? So remember that it is for fun, and that you are, hopefully enjoying, and also focus on what you're doing in terms of your progression when you're hitting better shots. I find a lot of people are concerned about what others are thinking, and everybody's focused on their own game. Very few people even care or know where your ball is, right? So focus on your individual improvement, because as we can identify little progress, we're going to feel a little bit more confident and therefore have a little bit more fun. And the other thing is just also be very much aware of your body and like what's going on. A little bit of, relaxation, a little bit of trying to be in the present, what you're doing right now, as opposed to where it might go, is probably the most important stuff.
Gotcha. So maybe I'll ask you one more thing before I let you go. When you talk about getting yourself relaxed, right? People always talk about breathing.
Mhm.
What's a simple or easy to do breathing exercise that most people can try to implement into their own routines?
Well, one thing that you need to do is, if you really want to be able to take one or two deep breaths to relax yourself in the midst of a golf game, you have to practice that, other places.
Right.
Before you go to bed, when you're sitting in the car, in a variety of different situations, because we won't be good at it if we just practice it once in a while. Okay.
Right.
So we need to practice it. Lots of opportunity to practice in today's life. The other thing is you can easily go online and look up box breathing, which is really, a square box. So breathe in
Box
for
breathing.
4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. Box breathing, it's a good way to kind of, get ready. And we do kind of hold our breath at times when we're playing golf.
But box breathing would be a good place to start if for people who have never done breathing exercises before
Yeah.
or even been aware of how that could affect them.
Yeah. And certainly lots of apps on your phone. Tons of apps that talk about breathing. And the good thing about the apps is it reminds you, right?
Right.
If you haven't done your breathing, my Apple Watch will tell me to breathe. I just not now.
Right. Do you have a favorite breathing app that you like?
Not really. I think that the one thing about the apps is it just reminding you to practice the breathing,
I see.
right?
And over time, you will figure out what patterns you like when it comes to how
Yep.
you breathe.
You can do the same thing with the triangle. Breathe in, hold, breathe out kind of
I
thing.
see.
So, whatever is easiest for you.
I see. That's awesome, Judy. Well, thank you so much. I'm sure a lot of these people will benefit greatly from our talk today.
No problem.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'll catch you next time, Judy.
Okay, take care.
Thank you so much. Bye.